Welcome to Childcare Rockstar Radio. I am your host, Kris Murray. Childcare leaders around the globe are breaking through challenges, leading the way in innovation, testing new best practices, and impacting children and families in a much more powerful and positive way than ever before. Each week, join me for interviews with early childhood leaders and experts that will leave you inspired to become the next childcare rockstar. Now, let's go. This is Childcare Rockstar Radio, episode 110, featuring Mike Michalowicz. Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. It's Kris Murray here with you, and welcome on back to Childcare Rockstar Radio. I'm really glad you're here. Today's episode is a little shorter than normal, short and sweet, and stay tuned for it because you're going to get a lot of writer-downers, as always, from the podcast. But today's guest is a very well-known author for small business. He's written 7 books, and he's also spoken to our group at the Childcare Success Academy. We had him in for a quarterly meeting, and he blew us away. He brought the house down with his session back in Austin earlier this year on Profit First. And that is his best-selling book. It's been translated into countless languages. And as Mike reveals on this podcast, they might even be doing a children's book version of Profit First. So Mike is highly entertaining and has a lot of energy, ideas, strategies, and fun to share in this podcast episode here at episode 110. So a couple things that I want to highlight for you. First of all, a little bit more about Mike. By the age of 35, Mike had founded and sold 2 multi-million-dollar companies, and he became a small business angel investor, probably quite full of himself at that point, thinking he was the bee's knees, and then proceeded to lose his entire fortune. And so he started all over again, driven to find better ways to grow healthy, strong companies. And he's devoted his life to this study and practice of successful entrepreneurship. And in fact, he shares his mission, his life's goal, his big, hairy, audacious goal of his entire life, his purpose, if you will, is to eradicate entrepreneurial poverty. And so we are along with him for this ride and love his books, love everything he stands for. His latest book is called Get Different, and he tells a lot of stories about ways that small business owners have been very in their box and just copying one another. And that's really what brought me to the childcare industry, was as a mom seeing the very boring, what I called Sea of Sameness across our industry in terms of how y'all are marketing your schools. And so that's when I jumped in 2008, 2009, and started transforming the marketing message and the experience for families as they were shopping for schools and preschools around this country. So Mike encapsulates that idea in his book, Get Different, and we share a lot of real-world stories and examples, case studies across different industries of businesses that have done just that. So it's very, very cool and very fun. And I am in the middle of reading his book, his top-selling book, Profit First. I've also read his book, Clockwork, and they're both excellent. So if you get a chance to pick up one of those and or his book, his latest book, Get Different, highly recommend that you do so. You will not regret it. Over here in Colorado, what's happening at the end of August here as I record this episode? Well, we are on the countdown, y'all. We are on the official road to the Childcare Success Summit. And by the time you hear this episode, we will be about a month away from opening the ballroom doors and having an incredible time in Las Vegas. And we are committed to showing up live and doing everything we can to stay safe and have an amazing experience and be together. And so that's what we're up to. Many of you, over 1,000 of you at this point, have RSVP'd that you're joining us. And so my big message to you is that here we are a month away, and I want to check in and make sure that you're committed to showing up and getting all the goodness and experiential awesomeness for your life and for your business and for your people that you will receive from me and our team at the Child Care Success Summit. So we are pouring it all in to give you the most amazing experience. And we hope that you show up. We hope you get on the airplane. We hope that you get in the car and show up for yourself and for your life. So make it happen. Figure out a way to get coverage, and you can do it. You can do hard things has been my mantra for 2021, much of it. And because I kicked off my year this year reading the book by Glennon Doyle, that is her bestseller, and I'm spacing the name of it at the moment, but it was given to me as a gift. And the theme of her book is that being a human is really hard, and you can do hard things, and you have, and you'll continue to, and with flourish and style and grace and courage. And so all of those things come to play. At this time of year, we're in back to school. We're in the most epic labor crisis of our age for school systems and private preschools and childcare centers alike, and all kinds of service businesses, and we will get through it. We will believe, and we will persevere, and we will persist, and we will get through it. So I want to see you. I want to see your beautiful, bright, shiny face in Las Vegas. I want to give you a big hug, and hope to see you there. So that, again, is October 6th through the 9th. We kick off on the evening of the 6th, and we are going to be at the Paris Hotel on the Strip in Las Vegas for our 10th annual Child Care Success Summit. And you can still get a few handful of tickets at childcaresuccesssummit.com. If you're hearing this and you've decided to just jump in last minute and be impulsive and go for it, I honor that decision. And hopefully we're not sold out in the ballroom quite yet, so we can squeeze you in at childcaresuccesssummit.com. All right, let's meet Mr. Mike Michalowicz. Enjoy this episode, y'all. And let's dive in. All right, welcome back to the podcast, everybody. I am really excited to introduce you to today's guest, Mr. Mike Michalowicz. Mike, how you doing?
I'm doing all right, Kris. Thank you so much for having me.
Fantastic. I'm so glad you're here. For the folks listening or viewing that are not familiar with your work and with you, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Sure. So author guy here. You can see strategically behind me if you're watching the video. I got my books. Just a quick background on me. I'm an entrepreneur my entire adult life, but I've had some wonderful blessings as an entrepreneur of building and selling some. Also, I thought it was a tragedy of destroying a company, losing everything, including my house. I mean, just wiping myself out. But in retrospect, it was probably one of the best things that ever happened to me. Gave me a new perspective on business that I didn't know makes business successful, small business. And so I became an author almost 15 years ago and started to really investigate what makes a business, for example, permanently profitable. What's a good way to market? How do you work business, have the business working for you? And as I researched that stuff for myself, and I still own businesses today, I own a handful, that I was investigating ways to employ some of my own companies, and they became books. And that's what I do now. I write, and I have other people that help me. They actually run the businesses. I just help participate on a professional level, honestly, and focus on writing books to help other entrepreneurs too.
Cool. So how many books have you written, and what is the book that's the top seller?
I've written on September 21st, there'll be a new book called Get Different. It's about marketing. My top seller, hands down, is Profit First. It's been translated to 24 languages, and it's in a second release. A children's book may even come out. My publisher and I are in conversations. So that for me, that's the bell cow.
Yeah. And we were lucky to have Mike come into our academy meeting in April and you did a session on profit first. And I got to tell you, Mike, you really blew our client base away and our members with that session. They loved it so much that many members in our group are off doing profit first book clubs and having a really good time with it and applying it. They're like baby step applying it to their businesses. So it was very powerful.
I love hearing that. Well, you know what I found, and I shared that briefly, if I recall, at our meeting, is that I think most of us are told that if we're not achieving the outcome we want, we need to change ourselves. And my conclusion is it's almost impossible to change ourselves, but it's very possible to channel ourselves. So when I wrote Profit First, the question that kept coming to me is, where do I and fellow entrepreneurs, where do we go to manage our books? Do we really go to our profit and loss statement, income statement, and so forth? And the answer was a resounding no. Most of us log into our bank account and we're running our business off the bank account balance. So it's like, okay, we've been told not to do that, but that's what we're doing. We better channel that. So Profit First was a system I set up specifically to manage the way we naturally behave. And I think that's why it has so much traction.
Mm-hmm. So what is a fun fact about you personally that not a lot of people know?
Not a lot of people know that Christie Brinkley was a client of mine.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So I used to, one of my companies, it was acquired by Robert Half International, but we did forensic investigations. And he was from a guy named Peter Cook. It's all over the news at the time. But we were the ones doing the forensic investigation. We were analyzing what was happening on the computers around Peter Cook. And unfortunately, it was a little bit nefarious and not the best scenario to be in. But we found evidence that helped facilitate that case. And Christie's really tall, by the way. I told my wife, I couldn't believe it. I was later, and I was going to the meeting with her attorneys, and she walks in. She gets out of a limo, walks in, says New York City. The door closes, and it's just me and Christie Brinkley. And I look over, and I looked up. I'm 6'1", and I looked up. She was wearing heels. She was tall.
Yeah,
she's tall.
It reminds me of that the video Uptown Girl, where she's, I think Billy Joel is singing.
Oh, with Billy Joel, he's on the
like
soapbox. Short.
And then she's like way up here, I think.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
I wish that marriage lasted. I
do too.
At least from the celebrity vantage point, I love both of them.
I do too. That's good. And you're from New Jersey, so you're in that neck of the
Billy
woods.
Joel's territory. I told you off air, we're going to Long Beach Island. Billy Joel had a house there. I don't know if he still owns it, but it's right down from where we stay.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very cool. Let's talk a little bit about the small business owner, the Main Street business owner. We have childcare business owners and preschool owners in this audience. And what is a common mistake that you see them making, maybe a painful mistake that you see small business owners making that you wish that you could help them avoid, or maybe something that you just commonly help them solve?
Brain of marketing right now is my book. And what pains me is to see small businesses following the best practice marketing of people in their space. Best practices, I'm actually a big proponent for. If you have a hiring and recruiting technique for your school and it works extremely well, that may be something that I can leverage in my own school. The challenge, though, is marketing. If the same populace, the same community of prospects is receiving the same type of marketing from the same type of service offering, it becomes saturated to them, the prospect. They can't see it anymore. They're overwhelmed, and therefore it's highly ignorable. So best practices kind of expire when it comes to marketing. What I wish small business owners would do is that they would look at how they're marketing and do something that's unexpected and different. The reason is the human mind's wired that when something different presents itself, we pay absolute attention to it. We have to. We're wired that way. Like, if you and I were outside right now having this conversation and something in the grass, that's unexpected. We will jump back. We will look down and say, is this a snake, or did someone turn the hose on? Evaluate it. So that works in all scenarios. When you do something unexpected, something different, it garners attention. It doesn't garner business every time, but it garners attention. And that's the first step to garnering business.
Yeah. I mean, that's really, Mike, the same thing that brought me into this business in the first place was, as a mom, seeing all the similarities and boringness if you will, of all
Yeah.
the same messages. All the daycares and preschools all had their enrolling sign, and it was like nobody stood apart. So it was what I called the Sea of Sameness, and that's really the foundation of what's in your book. Get different, and that's an amazing message that you brought to the world through that book, because I think most small business owners, they just look around and they kind of grab the best practice of what their niche is doing. And then it's so, like you said, ignorable and forgettable. So I love that.
It's a shame because these businesses are really good businesses. Like they're run by people who really care. They're run by, particularly the small business, the micro enterprises. These businesses were involved. They're going the extra mile. They're communicating so effectively with the parents, or so much more effectively than the big juggernauts. The thing is, the large enterprise industries, they have the money to have a loud, repeating mouth. So their saturation marketing kind of works because they say the message over and over. If we blip out the same message as they've done 100 times, we're doing it one time to their 100, we're in the sea of sameness. We're invisible. But the beauty is we can stand out by just changing things up. I also want to point that if your preschool or day school is better than the alternatives, we actually have a responsibility to notice. I believe marketing now is the ultimate act of kindness, because parents that need that service are going to find that service, but if they're not finding you, that's their problem. It's our fault. We have to market to get noticed if we're truly the best.
Mm-hmm. Another thing that we teach is how to build trust. So do you have in your Get Different book, or any of your other books, do you talk about ways to build relationship and trust with prospects?
Absolutely. So in Get Different, I talk about the whole marketing messaging. And let me pre-frame with this. No one knows how good your business is until they do business with you. The only experience they have with you until they do business with you is your marketing, is the message that's out there in the public. So we have to put controls in it. And the frame we use is called DAD. It's an acronym. It stands for differentiate, attract, which is where the trust factor occurs, and direct. Differentiate, we talked about, is do something that's unexpected to get noticed. And I'm not saying outrageous. This isn't about outrageous marketing or weirdo marketing. This is about doing something that's intrinsically true to you, but is different than the enrolling now type of messaging.
Right. Second
thing, the attract factor, is we got to speak the language of the prospect. So we actually have to know what our prospects are like. Are these super busy professionals? Are they gay couples? Are they in a certain religious faction? Like, what's the common best customer? Speak specifically to their interest needs. Use their language. When you speak the lingo of the community, that is the ultimate transfer of trust, because they say, oh, you get me. And you can do that in simply a few words when you use the right lingo.
Mm-hmm. What was the final D?
Direct. And direct is where we tell the prospect to take specific action. So I'll kind of give you a grand failure here, is if you watch the next Super Bowl, they'll do it every year. You see these amazing ads. They're different. It's the fresh rollout of it. They're quirky, funny, they're unexpected. They're so heralded that people are like, oh, let's have a review of the ads or the commercials. So that's different. They're attractive in that they tell compelling stories. You got these clapping Clydesdales and snow coming down and someone's drinking beer. Oh my gosh, this is heaven. But they don't have the direct. Like Budweiser, at the end doesn't say, give us your email so we can send you a coupon for a 6-pack. They could collect hundreds of thousands, perhaps millions of emails, permission to market, but they don't do it. Those companies are blinded to it because they got so much money. They just keep on throwing toward the budget of building brand awareness. We have to have a direct as small business owners. It's a specific and explicit direction on what you want the prospect to do. Here's the key. It must be reasonable. So maybe you want to get students enrolling, but parents come to your website, whatever. When they come to your website, the direct won't be like, enroll your child now and give us a $1,000 deposit. It may be simply download our 15 tips on picking the best preschool in your area and give us your email in exchange. There's a currency, there's an exchange. Now you've moved one step further or closer to the transaction, the ultimate transaction of enrollment, but you've made it safe for them that they're not enrolling without knowing you. They're simply downloading your guide. Then the next step may be a phone call, and the third step is a visit and enrollment.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any examples of either businesses that you've owned or businesses you've coached where you've helped them shift their message from boring and forgettable to like a
Totally.
wow message? Can you give us an example or two just to
I'll give you two then.
Juices flowing.
I can roll through a million of these, but let's start with one. Jim, right down the street, there is 3 fitness studios. We live in like a colonial old town here in New Jersey. It was mostly retail stores, window fronts. Some of them have been taken over by fitness studios. There's literally 3 within a block and a half of each other. They all have the same before and after. So you walk by the windows, it's like, here was schlubby person before, here's amazing rich person after, that could be you. And like, okay, that's the one thing not to do is these before and afters. So I went to one of these places and said, listen, if you're willing, we can change your marketing instantly and you'll get a lot more business and it costs almost nothing. That's the beautiful thing about being different. Usually it costs very little. What we did is we got funhouse mirrors. This is I call it a blend technique where you take something that intrigues people in another industry and you bring it to yours. So next time you're at a carnival, you may see those funhouse mirrors and we look at each other and we laugh, we take pictures. So I'm like, that's very engaging. So we put funhouse mirrors, we took down all the before and afters of their clients and we put up these before 2 mirrors. One said before and one after. The before one made you look short and slubby. The other one made you look tall and ripped. And right above it, we just put text of that one mirror. It said before. And the other one said after and said, we just transformed you in the mirror. Let's do this in real life. Come inside.
Wow.
There's people gathering, taking pictures of themselves and walking in. That's different. I'll give you one more because I promised you 2. I did this for myself. I'm taking a flight. This is like 6-7 months ago. I'm on the airplane. I noticed as I try to get on the Wi-Fi that I see a lot of hotspots of other phones. One of the phones said the CIA. I chuckled. I'm like, oh, that's kind of funny. And I was like, oh my gosh. I'm seeing other people's hotspots. What if I set up a master hotspot that when people try to go on their phone, they always saw what I wanted to put out there? So I bought a thing called a WAP, a wireless access point. They're the size of like a old cigarette box and a battery. Combined cost for me is $25. The battery I got for free. It's like a cell phone charger and this WAP. I set it up that it says when you turn on your phone and try to connect to Wi-Fi, it pops up and says, buy Get Different, my new book, on Amazon. So now I'm carrying this around in an airport in my backpack. The broadcast is hundreds of yards.
Oh
so you're covering a terminal with this thing. When I'm on an airplane, until they take off, I do turn it off for takeoff as they ask, but I have it turned on. So everyone on the airplane is connecting. They're seeing this. When I go to a conference, I will go to the AV booth and put my backpack down and say, may I leave this here during the day? I'm speaking later. And they say, fine. And I'm broadcasting this message, buy Get Different on Amazon. I've spoke and I've had people literally, I come off stage like, Mike, you would not believe this. This entire event is advertising your book on the Wi-Fi system. And I'm like, oh, seriously? I had no idea. $25 and it's different.
Yeah.
Here's where things are also amazing, Kris. I've been talking about that now. I started that about 6-7 months ago. I've been talking about it. I've yet to find anyone to replicate it. There's this fear of being different.
Right.
So even if we discover something like, well, what if the event studio, like, what if the conference sued me? Or, what if people got upset about it? Mm-hmm. When we truly intrinsically believe what we offer is superior, advertising then is the ultimate act of kindness. I believe getting the word out about Get Different, because I believe in it so much, is the best per dollar punch you'll ever get in marketing. That I have a responsibility to get the word out, and that overcomes my fears.
Absolutely. And even if you did get in trouble, so what?
And then
so many times, so many times I answer those silly kind of fears in our head with, so what?
Yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah.
I'm going to go to jail over this? Like, it's absurd. Nothing. It's like, can you turn this off, please?
Yeah, that's good. One of the most funniest Wi-Fi connection points I've seen was when I was hanging out in my ski condo and it was FBI surveillance van.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah. That's pretty good. Yeah. Thanks for those examples. That's really powerful. And I love this. And again, you and I are exactly on the same page because this is exactly where I started out trying to guide our listeners, our audience to being different and not being afraid to stand apart, stand above, be a little different, even be a little wacky. Like your mirror example, because it brings customers. It's fun. It brings to mind another story, which I don't know if this restaurant was in Long Island or where it was. I think it was down in Florida. It was a beer and burger joint located right next to a bridge, and in Florida, between all the keys and the islands, the bridges go up and let big boats through and then come down. So the owner of the restaurant got the idea that every time the bridge went up, everybody gets a free beer.
Oh, I love it.
And so it usually happened about 3 times a day. And so because they got a reputation that if you go there and the bridge happens to come up, you're going to get a free beer. They literally started getting traction on this marketing idea, and they were always packed with customers at this restaurant just from that one
I'm sure.
thing.
The boat goes by, people are cheering.
Yeah, woo!
People are probably asking someone, "Hey, please send a boat through." Now you're engaged in the audience. And you know, the funny thing is, I think some of us get afraid, free beer per person, that may cost $1,000 every time a thing goes through. The marketing strength that gets, that could go mainstream media. It could be picked up in the news. Yeah. You can market just by changing your name. For this book, I interviewed a baseball team called the Savannah Bananas. Prior to that, they were considering the Savannah Sand Gnats, the Savannah Scepters. That was the name. And the team owner, who's a genius, said, no, we're going to be the Savannah Bananas. It's an outrageous name. It gets announced on the local news. I'll never forget this because there's a video of this. The sportscaster in Savannah looks at the screen all frumpy and he goes, "It's called the Savannah Bananas." And he's like all upset. The next thing is they bring in their new mascot, Banana Split, to a children's, to a school, and these children are going crazy. And you see them like jumping on the Savannah Banana and the fun they're having. Yeah. That Savannah Bananas team sold more apparel in the name announcement than any other team in the minor leagues. They actually are the most popular minor league team of all time. They sold out, I think now, 6 consecutive seasons, every single game. Right. Because they simply changed the marketing and started off with simply changing the name to something that's different.
Yeah. I love it. I have to say right now, even though this is going to be controversial, Mike, I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. We had to change our baseball team name from the Cleveland Indians to the Cleveland blank. And the best we could come up with was the Guardians. So we're now the Cleveland Guardians. I'm like, really? I mean, So I wish that we were the Savannah Bananas.
Are now the Washington football team. Oh, it's a massive opportunity. Yeah. But we're so afraid. We want to be so politically correct. Right. Now, listen, I understand the references of Indians and Redskins, and I understand the desire to change that. Sure. But it doesn't mean to something new that's fun or unique or different. Yeah. But there's this pull to commonality. There's this pull to the Sea of Sameness. Right. Even in the big leagues, literally. Yeah.
So for those of you listening, just remember that. Watch for it. See what strikes your fancy when you're out and about that is cool, different, fun, and unique, and then model that to your own business, and you guys will just thrive with that. So I love that. Kind of closing out our podcast, I wanted to ask you about your big mission as an author. So do you have like a big, hairy, audacious goal or number of books you want to write or what you got?
I do. So you can't see this on my wall here, but it says to eradicate entrepreneurial poverty. That's my life's purpose. And what entrepreneurial poverty is this gap between the perception of what entrepreneurship is. We're all millionaires. We sit on the beach drinking Mai Tais, and the reality of working our butts off, and most of us struggling to make money for next week's rent. That's the reality, that gap. And I've lived that. And my commitment is to close that. I think entrepreneurs, I used to say small business is the backbone of the economy. I regret saying that because small business is the economy. So that's my mission, to serve it. And how I do it is hopefully through my books, I simplify the entrepreneurial journey.
Mm-hmm. Very powerful. Love it. How can people learn more about you, Mike, and your books or your mission?
Best place to go right now is to go to gogetdifferent.com. That's the site for the new book. But at gogetdifferent.com, you'll see all the book links. The free resources, what I think is cool, I have a download where you can get, it's approaching 100 different marketing strategies that you can implement like this. So the mirrors, the Wi-Fi, those are some simple ideas. There's 98 other ones that you'll benefit from, all for free.
Cool. Love it. Well, thank you so much for being here. It was a blast as always. Really appreciate. And I hope you have a great rest of your summer and fall.
Kris, thank you. As always, thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.